Happy day, dear children. Welcome to 7th Standard English class. Hope you are all good. Today we are going to learn about new lesson, 6th lesson. A grain as big as a hen's egg, which is given by Leo Tolstoy. Before we move to the lesson, we have to know about the Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy, 1828 to 1910, was a Russian writer who wrote novels, short stories, essays, and plays. Tolstoy also wrote about education and the changes necessary to make it. Anna Karenina and War and Peace are recognized as Tolstoy's masterpiece and appreciated for their realistic description of life in Russia. Now, summary of this lesson. A grain as big as a hen's egg is an 1886 short story by Leo Tolstoy about a king seeking to understand the properties of a grain he acquires. One day, a boy named Anas found a strong object in a ravine and they sold it to a passerby for a penny, who then sold it to cruciality shop. Eventually, the object found its way to the king. The king was very curious to know what it was. He called together his wise men and they recovered that the object, about the size of a hen's egg, was actually a large grain. The king wanted to know where such a large grain could come from, and he had his men bring him an old peasant, hoping that he might know something of it. An old decrepit peasant, nearly blind and unable to walk, was brought before the king. The king showed him the grain, and the peasant said that he had never seen anything like it before, but maybe his father would know something. The peasant's father was found and brought before the king. The father was apparently healthier than the son, with only one bad leg and better eyes. He, however, still would not identify the grain, but suggested that his father might know something about it. That peasant father was found, and he was a healthy man with good legs and bright eyes. He identified the grain as one that he and his family had planted in abundance in their time. Now we move to the lesson. A grain as big as hen's egg, written by Leo Tolstoy in 1886. This parable takes us back to a time when land and what it yielded was free for everyone. Should one live by one's own labor and be content with it, or I what others produce? One day, some children found in a ravine a thing shaped like a grain of corn, with a groove down the middle, but as large as a hen's egg. A traveler passing by saw the thing, bought it from the children for a penny, and taking it to town, sold it to the king as a curiosity. The king called together his wise men and told them to find out what the thing was. The wise men pondered and would not make head or tail of it. till one day when the thing was lying on a window sill, and hen flew in and picked at it till she made a hole in it. And then everyone saw that it was a grain. The wise men went to the king and said, "It's a grain of corn." The king was surprised and ordered the learned men to find out when and where such corn had grown. The learned men pondered again and searched in their books, but could find nothing about it. So they returned to the king and said, "We can give you no answer. There is nothing about it in our books. You will have to ask the peasant. Perhaps some of them may have heard from their father when and where grain grew to each such a size." So the king gave order that a very old peasant should be brought before him. And his servant found such a man and brought him to the king, old and bent, shapely and toothless. He just managed with the help of two crests to totter into the king's presence. The king showed him the grain, but the old man could hardly see it. He took it, however, he felt it with his hands. The king questioned him, saying, "Can you tell us, old man, where such grain as this grow? Have you ever bought such corn or sown such in your fields?" The old man was so deaf that he could hardly hear what the king said and only understood with great difficulty. "No," he answered at last. "I never sowed, never reaped any like it in my fields, nor did I ever buy any such. When we bought corn, the grains were always as small as they are now. But you might ask my father. He may have heard where such grain grew." So the king sent for the old man's father. He was found and brought before the king. He came walking with one crutch. The king showed him the grain, and the old peasant, who was still about to see, took a good look at it. And the king asked him, "Can you not tell us, old man, where corn like this used to grow? Have you ever bought any like it or sown any in your fields?" Though the old man was rather hard to hearing, he would still heard better than his son had done. "No," he said, "I never sowed nor reaped any grain like this in my field. As to buying, I never bought any, for in my time money was not yet in use. Everyone grew his own corn, and when there was any need, we shared with one another. I do not know where corn like this grew. Ours was large and yielded more flour than present day grain. But I never saw any like this. I have, however, heard my father say that in his time the grain grew larger and yielded more flour than ours. You had better ask him." Okay, children, we stop now. We continue in the next class. Thank you, children.